So again, now I'm gonna be a little bit here, a little bit there, because I want to address a couple things. Where are we with the Israeli Palestinian crisis? And the reason I say that is because since we're talking on finance, you know that the Israeli economy is in a tailspin, and the only thing that's keeping it afloat is injections of aid from the United States and the European Union, and the only way the Israeli regime can continue its war of aggression is the what 500 plus shipments of weapons from the United States alone. So where are we with that? Because this is unsustainable for Europe. This is unsustainable for Israel. This is unsustainable for the so-called world's only superpower, because all three are essentially bankrupt.
Yeah, I think the one thing that collapsed with the events in Israel over the past 10, 11 months is the illusion that Israel was ever about having a homeland for the Jewish people. It was always an imperial project. And, it goes back to Halford Mackinder, where he wanted to rule Eurasian landmass, when he wanted to surround the pivot area and the pivot power, which he at the time identified most likely as Russia. So the British imperial establishment were afraid of a land-based power of emerging in the pivot area of the Eurasian landmass, and they expected that Russia would be that power. And their strategy to prevent Russia from emerging as a rival power to the British Empire is to surround it with a number of beachheads. Back in the day, in 1904, when Halford Mackinder wrote this geographical pivot of history, he was talking about Italy, about France, about India, about Korea as those beachheads. But in the decades since, they cultivated Ukraine, they created Israel, and then they divided India into Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and so they did this with the view of using all those countries. And Halford Mackinder explicitly wrote this in his treatises. He the idea was that the Western navies would supply war material to the land-based army of these powers, these continental powers, and then have those powers wage wars against the pivot power, i.e. Russia, in order to keep it weak, keep it constantly fighting quagmire wars, and so that the British Empire could maintain their hegemony over the Eurasian landmass. Same thing is going on today, except the geographies, not the geography, but the geopolitics have changed a little bit, and Israel is one of those things. So it was never meant as a homeland for the Jewish people. That was merely the acceptable, let's say, an acceptable rationale for expelling Palestinian peoples from their homeland and wiping it off the map. But now this project is sinking, same as Ukraine is. And so, of course, they will not give up, because giving up on Israel equals giving up on the wealth, on the resource wealth of the Middle Eastern region, of the whole region. They will lose control over it, and what that means is that they will lose the ability to control the collateral, which then translates into financialist flows in the Western financial system. So they will try to defend it to the end, but of course, again, when this gentleman, I don't remember his name, that you showed the video clip where he says, like, oh, we have to continue exploiting these resources.
Senator Todd Young.
Oh, okay, Todd Young. So Todd Young also mentioned the thing called private-public partnership. What that means is that the private stakeholders take the profits from these arrangements. They take all the benefits, But if things go sour, then the public pays the cost. The public pays the cost in terms of military enforcement of this system of governance, of this colonial system, and they pick up the tab if if things go south. And what that means is that all this aid that's flowing to Israel and to Ukraine is going to be borne by the ordinary people of Western nations, of the United States, of Canada, Australia, Japan, New Zealand, all of the nations that are in this, let's call it Euro-Atlanticist alliance. And then if they happen to win, then the benefits will accrue to the imperial vested interests, which is a very, very, very small segment of our populations, and they are usually, well, they are invariably the moneylender interests. It's the international banking cartel, and the defense of Israel, because basically they have no downside to it. If we pay the bill and they take the profits, they don't really have downside.
Right.
So they will defend it to the end. What they're worried about is that we all rebel, and that the French people whip out the guillotines back, and that the Germans rebel, that the British rebel. So they have to repress the populations at home, which is why now you're seeing very draconian new restrictions on the freedom of speech, of freedom of gathering, freedom to protest. They're trying to pen us into 15-minute cities. They want us all to have a digital ID connected to our smart devices so that they could track where we are at every moment, so that they could see immediately if we're planning to do something naughty, if we're getting all uppity, and that they could squash any freedom movement. But history is let's say that the track record in history of such endeavors it has a very poor outcomes, very poor prognosis. Every empire in history has collapsed, and so will this one. And then it's just a question of what end these people are going to meet. But I have the impression that they will come to no good end, because we know too much now. And once you've seen all this, there's no unseeing it.
Mhm.